Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 400 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports talk, sports content, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here today, we're going to be reacting to some of the best games from Week 10. So let's get started here with the Patriots and the Bucs. What a hell of a game yesterday. I think the Patriots kind of silenced some critics about how easy their schedule's been and they're just kind of beating shitty opponents. Well, yesterday, I think, as I mentioned, they definitely silenced some of the critics with that. They played one of their best games. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually feel like they didn't even play one of their best games of the year yesterday, actually, against the Bucs. I felt like they even still left a lot on the table. Drake May, I think he played a little better than his stats showed, but I even think still he didn't play in one of the best games he's had it all this season. And they still go into Tampa and beat Tampa at home. I didn't like the Patriots in the spot, to be honest with you, yesterday. And this is a diehard Patriots fan saying that. I thought we were going to lose this game, not just because, we've had a cupcake schedule or whatever it is, and then finally go against a good team with a winning record. And Tampa off of a bye against a Todd Bowles defense. Tampa at home, I didn't like it. I didn't like the spot. But they came out, they played really well. Travion Henderson, the rookies really came through, which I think is a really good sign, because the thing is with this Patriots team is they're the opposite of kind of what the Commanders were last year. Is like the Commanders, I think they may have the oldest roster in the league. They definitely have one of the oldest rosters in the league, like including last year as well, with an extremely young quarterback. To where this year, like the Patriots have one of the youngest rosters in the league. That's kind of what I said about the Commanders coming into the season this year is like, I don't necessarily know how good they're going to be because their roster was just really old. You have guys like Bobby Wagner, you go inside Von Miller. It's good to have vets, but you also kind of want to get younger. Deebo Samuel, you end up trading for him, who kind of seemed like he was kind of in his twilight years, to be honest with you. Really, his prime seemed like a long time ago, which at this point it was. But it's been about 3 or 4 years since Debo's really been in his prime at this point. He's had a bunch of injury issues. They had that whole thing with Terry McLaurin, and I don't blame them for signing him. I was in full advocate saying you have to sign Terry McLaurin. But even still, like Terry McLaurin's in his 30s now. So, I mean, their team only is getting older, really, besides Jay Daniels, it feels like, and some of their running backs. I mean, of course, they have some younger guys, but they have a lot of older guys. And this is the opposite of the Patriots, is like a lot of these players, Will Campbell, Drake May, Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson, all around the board. A lot of these guys haven't even hit their primes yet. I know, you do have vets like Stephon Diggs, who has been playing incredible. Mac Hollins, who I wasn't even a really big fan of that signing, to be honest with you, but he's been fantastic. He had over 100 yards yesterday. So I feel like the way they built the roster in New England has really been near perfect. You have a lot of guys who, as I mentioned, the rookie class has been, I think it's going to go down in New England history as one of the best rookie classes they've ever drafted. The impact that rookie class has had so far has really been nothing short of just fantastic. But, they really showed out yesterday. Kyle Williams, who, when he took off, Jesus, it looked like it was in like 2 times speed. There was just no catching him. Same thing with Travion Henderson, who, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. You look at his stats, I think he averaged about 10.5 yards a carry. He had over like 140 yards on 14 carries. But you look, and if you watch the game, he was pretty bottled up most of the game, besides those 2 massive runs he broke off for touchdowns, which I'm not taking away from him at all. But besides those 2 big-time runs, he really didn't do too much the rest of the game. Now, those 2 runs really ended up having them win the game, to be honest with you. So, regardless, I mean, they were massive. It's not like you have to keep breaking off 12, 15-yard runs to be able to be a good running back. He just brings an explosive element the Patriots haven't had in years. Really, their offense throughout the last 4 or 5 years or so, even the last years of Brady or so, they were kind of really slow. They just didn't have enough juice. When you look all around now, like I mentioned, you have Henderson, Williams, even like Pop Douglas they drafted a few years ago. They have a lot of speed on this team and a lot of young guys. So I'm very optimistic. I mean, they're 8-2. They play the Jets on Thursday Night Football, which should absolutely be a win. I know the Jets are coming off back-to-back wins, but when it's against Cleveland and I think Cincinnati. So I like the Patriots in the spot on Thursday, a short week. Again, the Jets' future is looking bright, but I mean, the Browns, I think, with the Jets actually going into halftime at like negative net yards on offense. I was looking in the third quarter. I think Justin Fields had like 5 yards passing. And for the most part, really the only juice the Jets have on offense is Breece Hall and Justin Fields' legs. And the Patriots have been like the best rushing defense in the league this year by far. So I love the Patriots in that spot on Thursday. I think they're going to be able to pull off. I think they're going to win that game by like 20 points or something like that, to be honest with you. But the Buccaneers, yesterday, they just didn't feel in sync. It didn't feel like a team that was coming off of a bye at home at all. I mean, Baker and the offense looked off. Now, in fairness, they should get Mike Evans back at some point this season. Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin were supposed to come back this week, and they didn't. I think the Patriots did get pretty lucky. Those two didn't come back. I think, if you add those two to the mix, I don't know if the Patriots do end up winning that game, to be honest with you. So you're going to have Godwin, you're going to have Bucky Irving, probably Mike Evans at some point throughout the season is going to come back, probably later on. And when you add those guys back, I mean, this offense is going to be extremely hard to stop. And I actually thought the defense did play pretty well yesterday. I thought Drake May didn't have one of his best games yesterday. I mean, I thought he did play really well still, but I mean, you look at his games compared to what he's had throughout the rest of the season. It doesn't even really sniff those games, to be honest with you. So I thought the Bucs defense played fine. I just thought the offense looked a little off. Tez Johnson had a good game. I mean, you look at the score, it was still a close game, but the Buccaneers just didn't have that juice. And that comes from having a majority of your best playmakers being out in that game. Like I mentioned, when you're missing Bucky Irving, when you're missing Mike Evans, when you're missing Chris Godwin, that's a huge blow. It's not like you're missing, your fifth receiver and you still have your top 3 guys. Like you're missing arguably your best 3 players you're missing on that football field, besides Baker and maybe Igbuka, but I like Godwin and Evans over him anyway. And he had a good game yesterday. That matchup with him and Gonzalez I thought was really good. Romo and them kept mentioning that yesterday, but overall, I thought that game kind of lived up to the hype. It was a little bit of a slow start, but on the second half, a lot of just explosive plays from the Patriots yesterday ended up winning them that game, which in previous years, so again, I mentioned this is a different Patriots team, that they weren't able to pull off explosive plays until this year. They just didn't have the personnel to do so. You look all around, and Mike Vrabel, for one, has just completely changed the culture in this organization. I mean, even the last few years of Belichick, where it's just a disaster. I actually seen a clip yesterday, which I thought was funny. It was really the end of the whole thing, was the Patriots and the Bears a few years ago. They ended up benching Mac Jones and put in Bailey Zappi. The Patriots were like 3-3 at that point. I think they actually ended up finishing the season like 8-9 and didn't make the playoffs. But it was over. That was the end of the entire thing. Belichick, Mac Jones, that game, that was it. And I mean, the last few years of Belichick was pretty ugly. You had Gerard Mayo last year, which was just a disaster, to be honest with you. There was just nothing. The players didn't really like him, to be honest with you. It wasn't that they didn't like him as a person, but there was talks in the locker room like, is this guy really qualified to be a head coach? He doesn't bring the energy. No one really knows what he does. I mean, the defense, even though like the last few years of Belichick were terrible because the offense was so bad, their defense was still a top unit. When the second Gerard Mayo stepped in, the defense was just absolutely awful last year. It was terrible. Everything just kept progressing every week. Vrabel steps in, the roster, the way they built it again, what I mentioned with the veterans and the rookies has just been fantastic. The culture he's built. I think there's few guys in run for the coach of the year. And I mean, Steichen, him, even still Shanahan, even though they lost yesterday, these guys have got to be at the top of the running for coach of the year. I think if they had Mayo with this roster, I don't think this team would be 8-2. I think he's just made that much of a difference. It's felt like really the perfect fit. He's played there. He played in New England for years, won a couple Super Bowls. It just felt like the absolute perfect fit, and you kind of wish they would have did it last year. There was rumors about like, hey, should we get Vrabel last year? And he was kind of waiting for it. Like, you guys going to sign me or not? And then they ended up sticking with the Mayo plan, and kind of wish they ended up having him last year, but I felt like it was good fate. And look, he's here this year. This is what matters, and they're rolling right now. And again, the Bucs will get their guys back, and I think the Bucs will be fine. But they just looked like they were short of that firepower yesterday. Baker kind of felt like, hey, Baker, carry us, please. our defense, the pass rush didn't really get to May quite as much as I thought, although May was taking some beatings yesterday, but it kind of feels like, hey, Baker, can you carry us? That's kind of what the offense felt like yesterday, but they'll get their guys back and they'll be fine. But that was a really good game yesterday. I feel like it kind of silenced the critics a little bit in terms of the cupcake schedule with the Patriots. And, that was a good win there yesterday. They moved to 8-2 to stay in that number 1 seed race, especially with the Bills losing yesterday. They got like a 2-game lead in that division now in the AFC East. Next, we're going to talk about the Giants and the Bears. I want to make a really bold prediction here to start this segment off here with the Giants and the Bears before I talk about the game. I think the Giants next year are going to be what the Patriots were this year and what the Commanders were last year. I'm going to make that prediction as I think the Giants are going to make the playoffs next year. I do. I think they're going to be that surprise team, even though I think their division is very competitive. Even though I think the Cowboys are all over the place right now. I think Jerry Jones is due to make a couple splash signings, especially on defense next year. They'll get Jane Daniels back. The Commanders will next year, and the Eagles ain't going nowhere. So I think the only thing in their way is that their division's really tough. But I think if the Giants were like the NFC South, I'd take them for a run for their money with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year. I would. I think Tampa would still be a better team next year, but I'd give Tampa a little bit of a run for their money with the Giants next year. I think they're going to get Malik Neighbors back, Scatterboo back. You're going to get more of an experienced Jackson Dart, who I think is a little bit reckless right now. He had that concussion yesterday. He's had a couple of hard hits. He's been in the Blue Medical tent a couple of times. That's kind of a trend with rookie quarterbacks, especially dual threat rookie quarterbacks. They're kind of reckless. They take a lot of hits. And I think Jackson Dart, whether or not it's Daboll there next year or not, which Giants fans and people all around are kind of a mixed bag. Like, should they just end up keeping Daboll or should they move off? My opinion, I think they should move off of Daboll. I think you have a really young team that has a lot of positive momentum looking forward. I think you just kind of start fresh because when you think of Daboll and you think a lot of the Giants moments with Daboll, besides the one kind of outlier year back in 22, they won that playoff game. It's a lot of negative with Brian Daboll, a lot of bad losing seasons with Daniel Jones and Daboll. Now, look, I know they don't have Daniel Jones anymore. But I still think it's time to kind of get a new face, build a new culture while you can with these young guys. We have a lot of them, still on rookie contracts. Scatterboo, Abdul Carter. You have Dexter Lawrence there, who obviously isn't on a rookie contract. But you have a lot to look forward to, Giants fans. And I'm already making this early prediction for next year. I think the Giants will make the playoffs next year. And at least give it a run for their money. I think they can at least go 10-7 next year. They're going to be sneakily good. People aren't necessarily going to think, you're going to look at the Giants roster and you're going to be like, hey, this team's going to be competitive, but you're not necessarily going to be like, is this team really going to make the playoffs? You're going to be worried about Detroit. You're going to be worried about Green Bay. You're going to be worried about Philly, even Washington when Jane Daniels is healthy. You're going to be worried about a lot of other teams besides the New York Giants. And that's where I feel like they could creep up on some teams. Again, they're going to have a top 6 to 8, maybe even a top 5 pick this year. I feel like this is literally the perfect scenario for New York right now, to where you're competitive in these games. Jackson Dart's showing a lot of promise, to where it's like when they have to put in Russell Wilson, it feels like a massive drop off, and that's where you want it to be. Because if Russell Wilson was stepping in and like he's better than Jackson Dart, you're like, well, should we be starting Dart right now even though he's getting injured? Like, no, you have a franchise level quarterback when your backup steps in, and it's like, hey, Jackson Dart is by far the guy. There's not even any talk of Russell Wilson or Jameis stepping in or anything. Like, he feels definitively like the guy. That's where I kind of feel like the 49ers are at, even though they signed Brock Purdy to this massive deal. And we could go on about, other scenarios as well, but where the backup steps in and is like, does this guy feel better than the starter? Like, is Mac Jones better than Brock Purdy? If we made a mistake, the Giants do not feel that way. So they have a lot of positive momentum, a lot of really high caliber, talented players heading into next year and even this year, but a lot of them are injured right now. Again, I still think maybe they should let go of Daboll and really bring in a new face, whether or not it's Minter. Lane Kiffin is an option as well. That name's being thrown around a lot this next coaching cycle for the NFL season. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And I'm already making that prediction for next year because I want to be able to bring this up, but if they do end up doing so, which I think they will, that the Giants are going to be that dark horse playoff team next year. I have a good feeling. And the reason why I bring that up too, before I talk about the game, is because the Giants felt really in control of this game when Jackson Dart was playing. Mind you, with no neighbors, like his main guy is Scadaboo all out. They've been out for weeks now. It made a massive difference when he was not on the field. And when Russell Wilson had to come in on the field, it felt like a completely different football team. Jackson Dart's a culture builder there. I have to give him credit. And I thought the Giants were going to win that game. They felt like they were kind of boat racing the Bears, to be honest with you, just kind of pulling away from them. And Dart went down, had that concussion, had to stay out the whole game. And I thought it was a funny moment when I seen Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson were literally praying on the sideline. And look, I know those two are very spiritual, kind of like optimistic people, but deep down, they feel like, I don't think there's any chance we win this game. I always feel like Russell Wilson, even though he's incredibly optimistic now, he's been the last few years really corny, to be honest with you. I think we all feel that way with Russell Wilson. He's been pretty corny over the last couple of years. Deep down, he knows when he has to step in the game, it's over. I think Russell Wilson knows to this point. He's been trying to revive his career, but he knows it's over. Like, you see him out there on the field, he's just kind of out there. He looks clueless. Like, he kind of looks like he's just out there with his head cut off, to be honest with you. Like, this guy is fully capable of trying to throw some 50-yard bomb down the field into, like, triple coverage and getting it picked off. Because that's the only offense he brings, is, like, throwing it into triple coverage. And that big rainbow deep ball, which is one of the best deep balls ever. It used to be, at least. But his arm is just not the same as what it used to be. And he really can't read the field. He just has no confidence. Like, it's over for Russell Wilson. And it was looking like the Giants are going to win that game to me. I really thought they were. But the Bears, with another, kind of miraculous comeback here in the last couple of weeks. He had that one against Cincinnati last week. They had the one against New York this week. And I was looking up at that score, like, there's no way the Bears could lose this game with the spot they're in. They were 5-3. They had a really good opportunity, and they did end up seizing that opportunity to go 6-3 and be well over 500 and kind of in control of their own destiny to this point so far. With the Vikings losing, Green Bay has a tough matchup against Philly tonight. Detroit had a blowout win, but again, I don't think Chicago is nearly as good as Detroit anyway. But they're still competitive in that division to maybe even try and win it. To be honest with you, try and win that division there in the NFC. Again, I think the Bears. I think Caleb is the guy. And I think in terms of him being able to pull off these comebacks and stay cool, calm, and collected in these moments, from what I thought a few weeks ago against the Ravens and kind of what I seen from the beginning of the season, I was like, even when they were winning games, I still didn't feel very good about Caleb, to be honest with you. I know Bears fans are probably going to bash me. I still feel a little weary about Caleb, to be honest with you. He's been great in these clutch moments, which I think is fantastic. I think that's the sign of a franchise quarterback. But to me, I still feel like there's more to be had with Caleb. Like, I still feel like, dude, there's just so much more I feel like we could get out of Caleb that I hope we can get. And I think that there's a lot of time to get, and he is getting better throughout the weeks. But I still think the inconsistencies are there a little bit. Like, if Jackson Dart were to end up playing that whole game, the Giants probably would have ended up winning that game, and we'd probably be talking different this morning. That's why I feel a little weary with Caleb. Still, is like the inconsistencies are still there a little bit. His pocket presence still just doesn't feel great. Kind of all over the place with his accuracy. I still think it can be cleaned up, but again, him in clutch moments so far, especially these last couple of weeks, has been fantastic. So that's definitely something to be optimistic about. And I think Caleb, again, even when I still feel like there's more to be had with Caleb, they're still winning games. And I think we have to give a lot of credit to Ben Johnson, who I was mentioning with Mike Vrabel and Shanahan and those guys. Steichen, in terms of coach of the year, I think you've got to throw Ben Johnson in that mix. Because where the Bears were last year with Caleb in his rookie year, and even before that, with Eberflus, the Bears were a disaster. I mean, Caleb is now on pace to be the first 4,000-yard passer in Chicago Bears history. Which is absolutely insane to say, but he's on pace right now. And this franchise is now 6-3. Things are heading in the right direction. hopefully, again, he can get that little bit more, I feel like there's a lot more to be had with Caleb. Which again, there's still 2 years until you have to pay him anyway, 3 years. So there's a lot of time for the stuff to be fixed with Caleb. And I think it absolutely will. And I think it can be, but I'm still a little weary. But nonetheless, though, he's been playing better every week and they're winning games, even though I still feel like he's not even playing his best football right now. And with Ben Johnson coaching him, with him calling the plays, I think the Bears and Caleb Williams are all headed in the right direction. I thought yesterday was a big time win to move them to 6-3. Again, I thought if they lost against the Giants yesterday and they were 5-4, I'd be like, that's just a massive loss. I mean, now you're only one game over 500 instead of 3 games over 500. So them pulling off that win yesterday in that clutch moment is massive for the Bears, and they have a lot of good momentum heading forward. So feels good to be a Bears fan if you're a Bears fan. I have a couple friends who are Bears fans, and I know they're feeling good right now. So if you're a Bears fan, hell, it feels like a new era for Chicago. There's no doubt about that. It's felt like a long time since that. Next game I want to talk about here is the Ravens and the Vikings. I thought for the Vikings yesterday to have 8 false starts in your home stadium is pretty horrible, to be honest with you. Now, the Ravens travel well, and especially, honestly, I guess they have for any team anymore. A lot of these teams, being at home isn't necessarily the advantage it used to be. Now, it is certainly an advantage, and depending on what stadium you play at, for one, and the Vikings have a massive fan base and a big stadium, but these teams travel so well anymore. Like, I live 20 minutes away from the Baltimore Ravens Stadium, at M&T Bank, and I can tell you right now, I've been on a couple of tours with Ravens fans, especially down in Boston. What was it? It was called like Be More Around Town, I think. We went to Boston. We all took a trip up there, and I was like the only Patriots fan on the bus, so it was full of Ravens fans. And even still, man, besides the Be More Around Town trip, when we were in Gillette Stadium and we all had to go to we all went to a Red Sox game as well. The Orioles fans traveled well. The Ravens fans, I mean, you look around everywhere in Gillette Stadium. And look, I mean, of course, there's a lot more Patriots fans than Ravens fans. But the way when the Ravens went down to go score a touchdown, this was like 3 years ago, I believe. Mac Jones was still the quarterback and everything. When the Ravens were still scoring, Mac Jones had a couple turnovers. I'll tell you this. It felt like a Ravens game almost to certain points. That fan base does travel really well. I had to give them a lot of credit for that, especially experiencing it myself. So I feel like there is, a lot more to be said there than just, J.J. McCarthy can't run the offense, which I don't think he runs it that well anyway. But even like the Steelers, every team in the NFL travels really well. So it was loud in that stadium. I mean, 8 false starts regardless. I don't care how well a team travels. Is something you just cannot have. And that's where I have some concerns with Kevin O'Connell, to be honest with you. Look, I know he's a former coach of the year last year and everything, and he's led this team to the playoffs. But hey, I went to the Minnesota Vikings Instagram page, and I kind of went all over their social media to see if the fans were kind of saying the same. And I'm glad we all kind of agree to where, like, he passes the ball way too much. You have a guy who's basically still a rookie quarterback. I still call J.J. McCarthy a rookie quarterback because he didn't end up playing last year at all. We all know that. And he's barely played any games this year. So he really is still a rookie in terms of experience on the field. I don't care how many games he watches on the sideline. In terms of his experience, he's still really a rookie. And he's passing the ball just way too much. I think he was like 17 for 38 after his first drive or something like that, where they went down and scored. He seems to have good first drives, J.J. McCarthy does. And after that, it is a complete disaster. Not even just one good drive, but like one good quarter. Like you go back to earlier in the year, was it Chicago or Atlanta they beat? I forget which one it was. I think it was Chicago. That they went and ended up beating them. And J.J. McCarthy had that like really good fourth quarter. He seems to have one good quarter and just completely falls apart the rest of the game. And with the 8 false starts, where I just don't necessarily feel as good about Kevin O'Connell as some other people, especially in the sports media. And back to what I was mentioning about this, when I seen in the Minnesota Vikings, the comments all over social media and kind of around to where like people are like, we just passed the ball way too much. I completely agree. I think they put way too much on JJ McCarthy's plate, to be honest with you. I think they do. And again, he's throwing to Addison and Jefferson, but the running game was working pretty well for the Vikings yesterday. And it worked really well the week before that. Aaron Jones had a really good game against the Detroit Lions last week. I was trying to remember the team they played against for some reason. I thought they played against the Packers for some reason, but then I was like, no, they did. They played against the Lions. Against the Lions last week, and they were tearing them up on the ground. JJ McCarthy, again, he had a really good first quarter, but after that, really didn't do much after that. He had an interception and everything against the Lions last week. And I thought the Ravens, honestly, even though they won, their offense really wasn't that good yesterday. I mean, they really didn't play that well. But they have massive issues. I think they look at Seattle and they see Sam Darnold, and they have a lot of regrets about this whole JJ McCarthy situation. Look, and it's not his fault, but patience is not a thing with this organization right now. They were 60 minutes away last year from being 15-2 in the number one seed to having the same roster, and they're now under 500, 10 weeks into the season right now. And their quarterback play is atrocious. Between McCarthy being injured and when he does play, he's just not very good, to where he had those couple of interceptions yesterday. And you look up and Jefferson literally like quit in the middle of the game. He was just done. He was like, well, what are we doing? He looked at that ball get picked off and just stopped and stood there. He didn't even try. And I have seen that going around, like Justin Jefferson quit yesterday. And honestly, look, you're getting paid, like you have to go out there and do your job. But I don't really blame him, to be honest with you. I look and I'm just, you look at his quarterback play. He was playing with a good Kirk Cousins for a while, Sam Darnold last year, and now this, and it's like, what the hell are we doing here? And I know he's a calm, collected guy, he has a calm demeanor, but he's pissed. I can tell you Justin Jefferson's pissed, and I think at some point this season, we could see maybe the Minnesota Vikings losing the locker room, to be honest with you. Maybe some of you guys are going to say I'm overreacting. They're only 4-5, I get it. But you have to consider to where they were at last year and the expectations this team had. And I get it. It's not all J.J. McCarthy's fault. He didn't ask to be drafted into this situation. But the quarterbacks, when they get drafted, do you think Cam Ward would die to be in J.J. McCarthy's situation right now? Hell yes, absolutely. Any of those guys drafted number one overall that get drafted to terrible teams, even, dude, maybe even guys like Trevor Lawrence that are on decent teams right now would kill to be on the Minnesota Vikings with Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and with Brian Flores in that defense. They'd love to be on that team. So, look, I get you didn't ask to be drafted in this situation, dude, but you don't think Caleb Williams wanted to be drafted to the Minnesota Vikings? I think he'd absolutely love to be there as well. Like just about a majority of quarterbacks would love to have that Vikings roster, to be honest with you right now. So, look, the Ravens offense, again, like I mentioned, they didn't necessarily play great yesterday, but even still, that Vikings offense, just those two interceptions McCarthy had were atrocious. And the Ravens end up pulling off a much-needed win. Again, they need any win they can get. And I thought in the first half when I was watching Baltimore, I was kind of like, God, are the Ravens going to end up losing this game? And if they lost and Pittsburgh would have won yesterday, I would have just about called it a wrap for the Baltimore Ravens season. They're only a game back now from Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, honestly, I'm going to talk about them later, so I'm not going to talk too much about Pittsburgh currently. But I think we could look up in 3 weeks and Baltimore's leading this division by a game or two. I do not like the Steelers. And I'm not saying that as like, I don't like the Steelers as a team, but I'm just saying like, I don't like their roster. I think this whole thing, they're very inconsistent. They're not a good primetime team at all. I think they're 0-3 in primetime right now, which what? They're 5-4. They're 5-1 when they don't play in primetime. So, and again, if you want to be a playoff team, you're going to have to play in prime time if you're a playoff team. So I don't like the Steelers team going forward. The Ravens have a lot of positive momentum. They much needed win yesterday. I kind of looked at this game on their schedule, and I was like, this kind of feels like a really weird game for the Ravens. Brian Flores, who I think Lamar beat him in that Dolphins team like 56-10 or something like a long time ago. It was like 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, he just killed that Brian Flores defense. And then I think it was like a few years ago, Brian Flores had his number. He's actually played pretty well against Lamar Jackson before that. So I actually had some curiosity coming into this game, like, could the Ravens end up dropping this game? I mean, even though I'm not the biggest fan of McCarthy or anything, I thought they had a decent chance of losing this game, to be honest with you. I thought this kind of felt like a little bit of a trap game for Baltimore. But no, they ended up pulling off the win. They're a game behind behind Pittsburgh now. So, again, man, the momentum is heading in the right direction for the Baltimore Ravens at the moment. And they're only a game back from leading the AFC North. So, a lot of positive momentum. Again, I didn't even think they necessarily played their best football yesterday, because they didn't. But they ended up pulling off the win, and I think Minnesota's in some trouble right now, to be honest with you. So, yeah, man, that's my thoughts on that game. Next game I want to talk about here briefly is the Falcons and the Colts. I think it's time to hit the panic button on Michael Penix. He did not have a good game at all yesterday. And I think you look at the weapons around him, and again, I think he goes deeper than Michael Penix. I think you do have to give him a year outside of this Raheem Morris-led team. I think Raheem Morris is a goner, to be honest with you. I do. I think I wouldn't be surprised next week if Raheem Morris is fired. You look up and they're 3-7 or something, 3-6, 3-7, and Raheem Morris is gone. I wouldn't be surprised, to be completely honest with you. Zach Robinson calling that offense as well. It's just not working. But I do look. When Penix throws an out route, when there's guys open, there was multiple instances of guys being open yesterday, and he just misses them. He misses way too many throws. Like, and it goes beyond the coaching sometimes with stuff like that, and not sometimes. If he's just blatantly missing throws, that's all on the quarterback. I just look and I'm like, God, is Penix good enough? I think in the shotgun, he's a lot more of a different quarterback statistically, but I don't know. I just think there's too much there for that offense to be as bad as they are. That pass rush for Atlanta, for one, yesterday, I thought they played a really good game against the Colts and Daniel Jones. Forced a lot of fumbles, which, again, I think for the Colts, Daniel Jones has always had fumbling issues, but it hasn't really been relevant at all this season until the last couple of weeks. And that's an issue for the Colts. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute, but I think it's time to maybe hit the panic button a little bit on Penix. Do they have a bit of a quarterback issue? It's kind of looking like so right now. But I just think the coaching in general for Atlanta just sucks. I think they need to bring in an offensive head coach for Atlanta. They would feel better if they got a really good defensive coordinator and a really good offensive head coach. That's where I feel like Atlanta's direction should be in right now. Look, I don't know who they necessarily get this coaching cycle. Do they want to get Mike McCarthy, who, again, I don't think is a premium head coach, but I think he's a guy who could steer them in the right direction. And especially, I mean, you look at him with the Cowboys offense, I mean, they were consistently like 12-5 under Mike McCarthy. I think Mike McCarthy honestly feels like a good fit for the Atlanta Falcons, to be honest with you. I think he'd steer them in the right direction. He'd have that offense going well. You get a really good defensive coordinator to develop a good pass rush. Those 2 first-round picks they took in terms of their pass rushers really showed out yesterday. They've been showing out the last couple of weeks in general for Atlanta. So, again, Atlanta has pieces to work with, but I call this season quits for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know. I look at Penix. I look at the momentum for this team. It's just not headed in the right direction for the Atlanta Falcons at all, to be honest with you right now. So I think it's over for Atlanta this season. But the Colts, I will say one thing, is that they needed that win yesterday, because they come off a couple of losses with some Daniel Jones fumbles. We'd have some serious concerns, and I do have some concerns with Daniel Jones's fumbles, because this is an issue he's had in the past. This isn't just something the last couple of weeks. This is something that has haunted his career. With like his whole career of the Giants, and now the last couple of weeks, he's always had a fumbling issue. And now the last couple of weeks, he's had a lot of turnovers. He had a lot of turnovers against Pittsburgh last week. But again, they had the most expensive defense in the NFL. You expect them to make turnovers. But this Atlanta Falcons defense has been good for the most part. But, and the thing is that they recovered a lot of those fumbles yesterday. If they didn't, Atlanta probably would have ended up winning that game. So that's something the Colts have to look at. And I'll say this for Jonathan Taylor coming off of a career game. Being a Patriots fan and seeing Drake May, as of yesterday, was like the favorite in the MVP voting, you really have to look and how is Jonathan Taylor not going to win this MVP trophy? It would be a crime if he didn't, especially if he keeps up this pace the rest of the season. It would really be a crime if Jonathan Taylor didn't win it, especially after a game like yesterday. If you replaced him even with a running back like Breece Hall, they wouldn't be 8-2. They might have 5 wins. But the way Jonathan Taylor's playing for the Indianapolis Colts team is nothing short of incredible, to be completely honest with you. It really is. To me, he's the MVP. And I think if he keeps playing on this pace and he doesn't win it, we have to take a look at changing this MVP award around, because that would be ridiculous. He has really been the heartbeat for this Colts team. And meanwhile, they didn't play the greatest game yesterday. I thought Jonathan Taylor, again, had a career game yesterday. And to me, is the MVP. I mean, he just is. Fantastic game there. And Shane Steichen, you really have to put in that conversation for Coach of the Year, because this Colts team had 0 expectations heading into this year. Literally 0. I mean, myself and the media was just dogging this Colts team all year. So, I had to give them credit where it's due. I mean, the Colts just look fantastic. Shane Steichen's a big reason for that. I thought Steichen would have been fired by Thanksgiving, to be honest with you. But they're 8-2 and looking to be the number 1 seed in the AFC so far. And Jonathan Taylor should really be the MVP, especially if he keeps up this pace the rest of the season, because he's the heart and soul of this Colts team so far. And that Sauce Gardner trade, yesterday he kind of looked on and off, but he just stepped in. They were kind of debating on even playing him yesterday, but, he had a really good play. He almost had an interception on Penix, actually. So, again, Colts heading in the right direction right now. Next thing I want to talk about here briefly is the Rams and 49ers, because I seen Kyle Shanahan said something about we could have suited up Brock Purdy, but they didn't. I think they're regretting that Brock Purdy contract, to be honest with you. Mac Jones, even though they lost pretty handily yesterday. I think they're regretting that Brock Purdy contract. With all the injuries they have, do you think they would have loved to have that $200-some million into investing it in an O-line, in a receiving group, and guys they can use to replace these injured players? Absolutely. Now you have Mac Jones coming on, playing amazing for the 49ers, filling in that Brock Purdy role. And Brock Purdy wasn't even playing very good before Mac Jones came in anyway. So now you have some injury concern, and Mac Jones has filled in the role really well, and it's just kind of like shit. I think Kyle Shanahan, he loved Mac Jones. He wanted to draft Mac Jones a few years ago. He's really wishing this Brock Purdy contract wasn't looming over their head. Because, look, the Rams steamrolled them yesterday. I mean, the Rams are the healthier team. They're rolling right now. This time of year, over the last couple of years, the Rams always heat up this time of year anyway. So this just felt like a terrible spot for the 49ers anyway. And their defense was most depleted. Now, they have a couple of really easy games on the schedule. But I just thought that interview was pretty interesting. I think they're really regretting that Brock Purdy contract, to be honest with you. I do. I just think we could look up later this year, if Brock Purdy's not playing well, that they might end up moving him. I don't know, especially with this contract, that they can end up doing that, but I think there's going to be a rift there with Shanahan, Lynch, those guys, that there's going to be a massive rift there. And I think that could be a massive issue. So I just kind of want to talk about that. Let's do a little bit of an Eagles and Packers prediction for I wrap it up here. I think I'm going to take the Packers in this game. I think this is a big spot. They're looking to really fill in an identity there for them. So I'm going to take the Packers in this game. I think the pass rush is really going to get to Philly, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Packers there. And, yeah, man, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow we got Top 10 Tuesday, when we rank the top 10 teams and quarterbacks after week 10 here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video here today. Again, until next time, until tomorrow, everyone take it easy.